And everybody watching them till they get up and sit
That's
down.
what hey, Betty, how you doing?
And they gotta nest a little bit and do this.
Don't put your finger in the air.
Oh, they don't
Come
put
on,
their
Evelyn.
finger in the air when they're coming in, right? They put their finger in the air when they're leaving early.
That's right.
Who knows that? I don't know stuff. Things I don't catch.
Anyway, we were just talking about today's gonna be on question and answer, and we'll just ask questions and answer, and trust that those answers flow from the wisdom of the great I am. That sound like a good answer.
Where else would they come from?
Hey, hey.
We were also saying that
Miss
how
Barbara, can I ask you to move over
Even if they
that
come
way a
from
little
this
bit? Yeah.
tour,
Right here?
Yes, that's
Barbara
good.
was also saying that we are down Trump.
We're down front.
Yes,
Of course we are.
and we are each other's mirrors. So
Some of us more than others.
yeah, we don't have the orange hair, but other than that, we're still down Trump.
I object that. No, you won't.
He's on his own, right?
This is supposed to be, what is it, I renounce, whatever.
Anyway, and so, we were talking about how stuff is just, you know, when you open a pus pocket of something, you know, sometimes the pus just seeps out and then you have to press it a little bit. But now with everything that's just coming to the forefront, you pierce that little pus pocket and it spews out everywhere. And that's what we're seeing with, yeah, it's nasty.
Thank
Because
you.
what we're seeing in the news is nasty. We're seeing our own nastiness, guys. It's been in there. And if you have women hiding something for 40 and 50 years, that's nasty. Especially when they haven't been able to deal with it. Can you understand how that has impacted their lives? Just the repression of that stuff.
Yes.
And
So-
other people's lives as a result of that.
Yes, because they are a world and they touch other worlds. That's why I say what we do, I got you, Rain, what we do individually with ourselves is so important because we are not our own. We are connected and we are a world unto ourselves and we touch other worlds. Everybody that we know, we touch their world. Whether it's positive or negative, we still interact and touch their worlds. Raina?
This is on topic but off topic. But Angie's daughter keeps posting these videos of the doctor popping these huge abscess pimples on Facebook. And when she's popping it, squirts her glasses, and as you say that, that's all I can think of. And there's just huge gobs of pus coming out of these pimples.
Is that something? How something? So I have not seen no. I haven't been on Facebook, but that. I mean, think of the nastiest, ugliest thing you can think of. Of course, most pimples are not like that, but if they're infected, and that's what we got a case of a bad spiritual infection.
If you had to
Oh,
try to
right.
spin this into something hopeful, what is it? It's an infected blockage, and underneath is the natural pore, you know, for the body's hair, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep,
So
gotta
it's
get it
just
cleaned out so the
yeah.
body will function.
So it's not a cancer in that if you cut something out, you've taken something out. It's a release to allow a natural, healthy complexion, whatever.
And that's
However
what this
far that
feels like,
analogy's got to go. Huh?
It feels like a release.
Yeah.
You know, when stuff, it's just gotta come out.
But I think, well, probably influenced from a book I've been reading. Actually, I was going to show Pastor Richard, but anyway, it's just a process that probably still we have more to be revealed.
Oh yes.
I mean, so we can't say, okay, now it's done.
Oh no.
Or this is 3/4 of it. We don't know.
You don't know because we're just dealing with what we see here, but we got to understand this is going on all over the world in its own way. It's just more visible here because we are perceived as one of the bigger powers. and everything's out there with Facebook and our media is just so. I mean, our media is not constrained as much as media's in other parts of the country. So,
Well, but we've also cast ourselves as the leader or leadership in the world. So, you know, it's appropriate that it be bigger, more widespread, but connected to, or flows out really because it's connected from us. Because we took that mantle happily.
Yeah.
And now we have to take what comes with it.
exactly. So what I'm suggesting too, though, is that we're just looking at what's happening here for the most part, those of us, but it's happening in other parts of the world as well. And we just don't know about it as readily or see it as readily.
You know, in the UK, a defense secretary just resigned because of allegations about sexual harassment.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I can't figure out what happened to Skype.
So, I mean, I think remember you said you were sad, and I said I was saddened by what I saw too. But it doesn't change the fact that we put that in the macro, and I'm happy that all of that stuff is coming to light. Because when stuff comes to light, it shakes people's cores, and it shakes them out of their usual normal rut and routine. And we all have a rut or routine.
The insidious thing about it is, especially with this guy running for Senate in Alabama, somebody compared his
Roger Moore?
Yeah,
Roy Moore.
somebody compared his persecution. No, they said, well, Mary was a teenager and Joseph.
Oh my gosh, yes!
I'm like,
What? Yes!
Yeah, but then
Trying to
Trevor,
confuse you.
but then Trevor Noah added quickly, but there was a virgin birth, right?
That's a
There
good
wasn't
comeback.
any hanky-panky,
I like it.
you know,
And
don't
that
wanna
person
make
was
that an
probably
analogy.
from one of those you know, those stone Baptist churches,
Yeah.
Bible Belt,
yeah,
Yep.
whatever.
I believe they pulled that one out of the hat.
Well, people are gonna grab at whatever.
But
Yeah, there was one
Analogies,
guy
they
who
can-
admitted whether he's guilty or not. Even if he's found guilty, I'm still going to vote for him. And I'm thinking, what does that say?
oh, what does that say to himself? He didn't hear himself.
What does that say to everybody else and kids?
I know what it says there. He doesn't.
Well, but the thing is, well, it exposes all the attachments. So somebody can be saying that, and they're not really condoning the behavior, but they feel a more profound threat to what they think is the whole thing that he represents, right? So anytime you take something away from somebody, if you don't give them something to take its place, they're gonna panic, they're gonna run here or there to do something, right? You have to always be aware of that. I've always had a sense of that. You can't just, tell them something that's supposed to make it better. There has to be a connection, and you have to give them something that takes the place of whatever that thing was they were holding on to.
Well, there's the scripture about that. Something
About
about,
the casting out the demons and that what's the 7 greater ones will come back in.
come back, yeah, you have to have something there that's still, no.
It's
we
I
don't know.
guess taking it more from a Buddhist point of view, you gotta learn to stop holding on to things and just be the way you were intended to be, which was sort of free and alive kind of thing. But that's hard.
You said it for me, thank you. I didn't want to say it, but thank you. But you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, you just have to be conscious, and I think a lot of times, that's why when some of these folks who want to come knock at your front door on Saturday morning or something, they're going to offer you something that they're going to take away, but what they offer can be just as harsh as what they're taking away or something, and you can't just absorb that in 2 seconds. That's the foolishness of this thing. Or maybe you shouldn't. If you take it that easily, maybe it's, some things are too easily given, you know what I mean? Anyway, I don't know. But,
It's kind of that theory, anything worth having is worth working for.
or it comes with struggle and effort, which isn't a negative thing. If you're an athlete, you put in the work. You don't just expect to be able to get out of bed and go run and win a race. You know? And that's considered a good thing. So,
Audrey, do you need a blanket or are you cold?
I'm right for the moment.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that you said earlier was you made a comment about, you know, when we were talking about Jay Walt, Pastor Jay, and Trump and seeing changes in people. You were saying, you know, you're talking about opposites. You remember that comment you were saying?
Oh, when I was saying
We were
being
talking about, you know, Trump is us and we Trump, and then
right.
If Sage does something
Oh yes, where if Sage does something, it would be
totally
like
against what
yeah, it would
you
be
want him to
too
do.
hard to it'd be too hard to fathom in my mind. Not that I think he can't do wrong. It's just I can't see him changing his whole. It'd be like, oh my God! It'd be like all I could think of is like where would his character have gone? Like, what happened to it?
Where you drop it off at.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We were talking about. I was talking about Donald Trump, and Miss Barbara had said something about, you know, he is us and we are him. And I said, yeah, I understand that part. But what I was thinking when she used the term, I forgot what the term was you said.
Making the case for compassion.
Yeah.
For Donald Trump when we did that a while
Oh.
ago.
We were talking about if a person chooses, oh my gosh, it's kind of hard to explain now. We were talking about if a person could choose
He chooses to act in the way he would, knowing
Yes.
it was wrong.
knowing it was wrong. And I said, well, when you said that, I was thinking that'd be like Sage suddenly saying, none of this is true. That, you know, this is an illusion. Like if he totally flipped his script, that's not fathomable to me that somebody would want to be the opposite. There's an opposite to everything in my mind. So if there's an opposite to Sage, I can't imagine. I know it's there, but I can't imagine somebody choosing to want to create an illusion permanently.
Okay.
I don't know how else to explain it.
Kind of shadow something. There is appearance of opposites. There are no opposites. Everything is on. It's on a continuum. There really are no opposites. It's the appearance in this
World.
world, illusion of the world. And that's what just came up in me, but I gotta now back it up. Okay, so listen, because I need help.
Is that like you saying when you explain to me about peace is not the absence
It's not
of
the
war?
absence of war. It's not a one-timey. You know, we can't make statements like that. Flip. You know, I used to flip on that. Flip that statement by saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, I don't want confusion. But it's not that simple. Peace is not just the absence of war. Peace is understanding in yourself that you can find the calmness, the focus that you need in spite of or in the midst of whatever chaos is going on."
I think that's something that I felt for a long time and we've never really talked about. And I've read things that have helped me to have different views. But our notion of what those opposites are isn't always correct. Just like you're talking about peace, the opposite of peace, if you think of peace as calmness, openness, whatever, what's the opposite of that? It's confusion. It's not war. War can be a manifestation of that confusion. It doesn't have to be, it's a war of sorts, but it doesn't have to literally be war. Another one is the opposite of love is hate. No, it's not. It's not. What psychiatrists will tell you, it's obsession, it's possession, it's possessive, which can lead to, right? So in other words, what am I trying to say? I sometimes miss having to get into that kind of discussion to see how many of those opposites we don't get right, because I think that helps with the confusion, right?
Right.
But what we do is we concretize those opposites, the negatives. We put them in a box, and we put our own
Spin on it.
definition to what this opposite is. When it can't be contained in a box. Because think about this: we talk about ripeness and unripeness. What could be ripe at one point in time is unripe given other circumstances. But if I try to do it, or at a point in time when it's unripe, I think something's wrong, or it's nasty, or oh, well, that's not fit to eat, or that's not fit for me to think about. But you gotta understand that. I guess I'm thinking more in terms of the ripeness instead of the opposites now.
But
That makes sense.
That everything has some kind of motive behind it at some point in time. Now there's some negative thoughts that flow through my mind, but I have the choice to take that and dwell on it and create it. I have that choice. I gotta ferret it out. I gotta be the sifter of those things. So everything's not black and white for me anymore, like the love hate, like the peace and that.
I think that what I hear you say, and my sense of that is ripeness and unripeness is a little different because you put time in there. So there's an opportunity for what's unripe to become ripe. Things like love and hate, duality, are fixed, established things. There's not a change, no, in the way we think of them. So, you know what I'm trying to say? So, the idea of ripeness and unripeness is perhaps has the aspect of timeliness to it. So that change can come, right? What's unripe can become ripe. It's before its time, etc., etc. But these other notions we think of as very fixed things.
That's
So,
what we
so
think of.
how do you allow hate? I'm not quite sure how to apply it. If you apply the idea of ripe and unripe,
Yeah.
concepts of love, hate, blah blah
Let me
blah,
see if I can get this together.
it changes the whole dynamic of it to me.
We've talked about in here this idea of okay, I hate black folk. Incidentally, I gotta tell you about this thing I heard on Steve Harvey. I never listened to Steve Harvey. I just happened to have the radio on because I was listening to the CD and turned the CD off and the radio popped on. Anyway, but love, hate, love, hate, love, hate. Given the certain circumstances, etc., etc., etc. Outside of time, and even ripeness and unripeness can be perceived as outside of time. There is just a situation in which, at a given point in time, that love and hate can blur. Even love and hate can blur. In time. Arranged marriages. You know, people can fight that and fight that and fight that, and the parents can see beyond what the individuals see, and over time, love can grow. I can marry somebody that I have my own preconceived notions about them, and so I build up these ideas, etc., that make me, he disgusts me, whatever. But that's my own preconceived idea. But given the right circumstances, I can be shown that that's not the case potentially. So that's why I use the ripeness and unripeness. It's not black and white. It really.
Well, I think what you said, what struck me was when you say at any point in time. So
That's why I said break.
if it's a continuum and you put your finger on a point in time, there's a fixed relationship that exposes.
If you bring
But
it
that
in
doesn't
the
have
aspect
to be-
of time.
But that doesn't, if you look at it from within the context of right on right, a continuum, hate can become love. I mean, this is a rather extreme example, but it's the same thing. But when you look at it at a point in time, you'll see it a certain way. And the other thing about, I've felt for a long time, the idea of fixed marriages and love marriages, at the end of the day, ultimately have the opportunity to do the same thing, because I know people from both.
What's a fixed marriage?
Arranged.
The hard word.
Arranged.
Oh, fixed.
You can start out not knowing the person, but how much do you know the person that you're loved? You know, there's all that conversation around it. So sooner or later, you have to find the real person, the real relationship, and decide if that's important to you, and then make that grow, right? That's why they tell you, after the honeymoon, marriage isn't the end, it's the beginning, right? So, and it just takes a while to wander around in that relationship. So at the end of the day, to me, it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen the other. It's what you can do with it or not. Right? Why do we have a lot of divorce? Apparently somebody said, this couldn't go the way it was supposed to go. I'm not trying to even get into that, because it's more complex.
Yesterday.
So it's similar to the conversation we had one day about suicide. We were all asking questions about that. And then Janice told the story of the gentleman who she'd read about that arranged his time of, said his goodbyes and arranged his time of death. And it, for me, it opened up the whole thing that we do have these fixed, as you called it, fixed notions about something. Like, we tend to believe suicide is totally wrong. I don't know that I was ever stuck on that, but now, to me, after having that talk, there was a ripeness in the way in which he did it, in my mind.
The other thing too is that if we believe that suicide is the end of all, then why? We're saying that that's the one sin that can damn us forever, ever, to be separated from the Creator. That's what we're really saying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and can anything ever separate us from God's love?
right. So where do we get the notion? That's same. I think in the same. It's a quality of abortion. It's the church telling you you can't take control. We have that authority. That's really
Makes
what
sense.
I think the history of it. So as you get older, you start where these notions come from. That's why I think you get to an age or stage in your life where you think, I don't know anything for myself. And that's, they always say, the first sign of wisdom. Right?
And wisdom is one, the end of the beginning.
And not
Which
being,
means then that you're open for anything.
having the courage to ask those, why do I think this way? What does it mean to think that way? And that's what I think is being exposed.
Yesterday on Steve Harvey,
Mm-hmm.
Tommy the Prankster, nephew Tommy, he called this man and he said, Mister, your wife and my wife go to the same fertility clinic. And I just need you to know that something got messed up and something got crossed up, and your wife has my seed. And he said, what? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? These things are, this is, why are you calling me with this information? This is confidential information, blah, 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 blah. And so nephew's Tommy got to turn things. He says, well, I'm just calling you because I thought you needed to know. And I want you to know that what did he say? I don't want my baby, he said, I'm your wife, baby daddy. And so the man said, so you're using that term, you must be black. Are you black? Are you black? Nephew Tommy turned it in some more. What you mean am I black? I just don't want you mistreating my child. If I, blah, blah, blah. And, oh man, he had this man. I don't want to stay on that because the end result is hopefully when that man got off the phone, because nephew Tommy finally told him, man, you've been praying. Because his wife was 8 months pregnant. He was about ready to deliver.
Mm.
Man, and you've been praying. Your wife set this up. So I am hoping that, I'm trusting that he saw him, once he gets off the phone, he really starts thinking about it. Because he talked about, you mean I'm going to have a black baby? What? A black baby? And he may go out and adopt a black baby after all of that, just to prove himself that he's... Anyway. Anyway, it showed, what he did. I thought, man, how can you do this to this man? On the one hand, but on the other hand, I'm trusting that man saw a mirror of himself too.
No doubt.
And that will change something in his world. May not be a significant change, but guys, it doesn't take a significant change in your world to make a difference. And so, and this is a guy who listens to the Steve Harvey music. Me and my wife listen to me all the time. Yeah, until it gets personal. Huh?
It was a real call.
It was a real call. His prank calls are always real calls. To individually, but his wife called in and alluded to prank this guy.
Well, are we doesn't revelation means uncovered truth?
To reveal it.
To reveal. So aren't we in that age right now where, and it's not the end, it's the beginning to me.
When we were talking about the dimensions and the fifth dimensions and stuff like that, yeah, this is the age where stuff is being uncovered and revealed. All of this. And so that's why whenever you hear stuff, you can be sad about it, but you have something behind your sadness that you can hold on to. We asked for stuff to be revealed.
We did.
Well, I'm glad you
We
feel
put it in the macro.
Yeah, well, I'm
You
glad.
sat here, you were one of the people in the...
Yeah.
I know, but I'm glad she feels it. I'm sorry. That's all I know.
You don't feel that sad?
I don't have it right now.
Yeah.
That's okay, because you're not supposed to.
Sometimes
You're
it
right.
will hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What hits you may be different from what in terms of the way it makes you feel.
Right.
And that's because you shouldn't be the burden bearer for everybody and everything. And that tells me that even those being shared. No. That's what it says to me.
Yeah.
Because I never see you laugh when 2 years ago when they talked about all of this stuff about what's happening on these females and stuff like that. The weight of it. But we've got access to a greater truth. So it's other questions?
That's sort of a funny, ironic thing. I'm sitting here thinking, did I do this in my past? Every man is like, wait a minute, what?
Because they're probably all
Guys grow up, we're supposed to be the chasers, right? But
That's interesting you said that, Richard, because one of the thoughts I had was we had a guy accuse guys of sexual harassment, and we've seen the typical male-female. What we haven't seen yet is the male-female.
That's true. Yeah, the typical male anatomy. I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
We've seen males being accused of sexual by women, and we've seen male on male. But in the news we
Not as
haven't
much.
seen female on female yet,
Not as much.
or I haven't seen it yet, I
haven't
should say.
it's fair.
I'm sure it is.
We haven't interviewed prisons, women in the prisons.
I don't even think in prison. I think in the same industries that are apparent now, that eventually what'd you say? We pop the wound and pus is coming out. I think it will come out.
I think a lot of it relates to the power that's attached to the individual who's
Yeah.
doing
Mhm.
this, and women may not perceive themselves to have that much power, and so when someone comes on me and I said, I'm not interested, I'm not, I respect you for who you are, and if that's what you do, that's not me.
Somebody hit on
and
you?
so somebody can hit, yeah,
Okay.
when I was in college, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So when that happens, generally women will just, okay, and they shut it down.
Sure.
Whereas men, if they have this power and they think, I got something you want, I got this modeling career, I got this acting, I got something that I have that you want,
Money.
they can push
prestige.
the issue a little bit more. So I'm wondering if that plays into it a little bit.
I just think about how the church just put barriers on you, all that stuff. Because my mom was at church and this guy came in and he was homosexual. My mom, he sat right next to my mom. My mom started sweating. She said she couldn't concentrate on the sermon
What are you,
because she
science?
sat next to him because he was
How
gay.
did she know that?
Because it shows. And
He could have been from Charleston.
anyway,
That's what they all used to say out here.
anyway, it's just amazing how the church plant that seed in your mind. And she acted as if he was contagious, like he had something, you know. And she said, you know, I just couldn't get into the service today because so-and-so son sat right next to me. And I said, well, Mom, it wasn't like anything was going to rub off on you. But I said that again to say how the church has put so much
Sure.
pus in us. You know what I mean? Loaded us up with it. We've been injected with that.
Same thing. I can remember being hit on by men in the church when I was a teenager. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
But that same thing was put on us in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't feel any irresponsibility.
And they thought
They
that was
just
the
thought
norm.
it was the normal thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, being the only male in the room.
Right now.
I had my Mrs. Robinson moment. And
You're leaving right there.
well, I
Why did
mean,
you bring it up?
That's what I'm saying.
well, it wasn't yesterday.
What was your point? Why did you bring it up?
No, I mean, it's not just, I've had women,
You're saying women hit on men like that too.
but if it's an older woman, there's a certain sense of this person is older, more mature, there's some they have some status in the community. And in one particular case, she was a senior manager in, I think, OEO, Office of Economic Opportunity, when I was working there one summer. And so there was a little bit of that. But maybe men would deal with it a little, I don't know, would deal with it differently, a little more ambivalently. What are the words I'm trying to get out? Because of all the things we're told we should be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're supposed to be, if it's there, take it, you know, which isn't true. But there are a lot of women who think that way, and they present themselves that way.
It's interesting what you just
So
said.
both these things.
One of the things that men are told is if it's there, take it. If it's off, what you're waiting on, which is another one of those part of the baggage that we're sold. And some people buy that. They say, okay, I'll take that for a penny, and they buy it and they incorporate it into themselves.
I think it's very good song. I know I grew up coming through a lot of guys acting that way and thinking I had to act that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be very honest about it. I found myself in situations where it got to a point where I said, what am I doing? I don't want to do this. And it was pretty awkward.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, but, you know, sort of talked it out a little bit. But so both sides can be following false notions of what they should be. It's just part of this whole thing about, you know, by the time you figure out how to use it, it's gone, or whatever. You know, that sort of joke about it. It just takes a while to work through all of these things, but you're right. I think you can say that about the church because the first exposure you have is with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they bring is what you learn, and that's way before you get to preschool or whatever, right? Even if you're just sitting on their hip on Sunday morning, or you're going out to Sunday school, it's all right there. And the things the church teaches a deep, good, evil, but it's just innate. So it's the first contact with all these kind of things. So it's either done in a good way or it's done in a way that you discover later on created distorted understandings of how, things really are, so to speak. That's just part of learning by living.
But we talked a while ago about going along with the herd mentality, and that's sort of what I was thinking when you were saying, yeah, I did this until I checked myself and said, hey, what am I doing? I don't even want to do this. But you do things because it's like that peer pressure kind of thing, similar to that, not like similar to that. But you go along to get along. You all heard that phrase before.
Mm-hmm.
You do what you got to do so that you don't rock the boat. And that's why we're, when you do something different now, that's why we're seeing so much of a rebel, because we chose to get out of that path and go against the grain, if you will. Everybody's coming this way, and you trying to go this way. Sometimes you get trampled, sometimes you get hurt, but you're seen as a person going against the grain. What's happening with our president is that so many people are in that herd mentality because they think he's leading them toward the goal that they want, whatever that goal is. And every once in a while somebody falls out and says, hey, look at the impact this is having on not only us but our world. What am I doing here? I'm not going that way. I mean, there are a number of people who haven't spoken up, but they're decided not to run next year, or whenever it is they run. Or, I'm seeing some things even in Lindsey Graham that tell me that at least he's thinking. He's thinking. Mm-hmm. He's not just. So whatever happens, it doesn't matter. I have to trust, and I do trust, that in the midst of all of this stuff, that people are seeing themselves, are seeing the mirror of themselves, and that image is quote unquote arresting them. In other words, stopping them in their tracks and giving them pause to think. Now, whether they act on that what we were just talking about, you have to make a decision, like you were talking about. Whatever the church put in there, at some point in time, all of us had a little bit of that. It maybe not be that issue, but it might be something else.
Oh yeah.
But we had to act on that and make and choose, turn around. What does Nick say? And set our intent otherwise. So I have to trust that there are people, because of stuff that's coming up, that's surface, that see themselves and are at that moment of truth in a sense. And that doesn't mean that's the only moment of truth they will have. Thank God there are many moments of truth that comes up, that we have opportunity to ask the questions and check ourselves and say, is this really what I want to be about, or who I need to be about, or who I really am? Those are the questions that surface. And so I was talking to a guy in the office, and he likes to come in and talk, did you see the news yet? Trump is, I said, yeah, I love my president. I love my president. That's so fun. Wow. And I said, because just think, look at all the stuff that has come to the forefront since he's been president. Stuff that's been buried that we need to see so that we can address. I love my president.
So he's gonna limit his visits to you
He
because
has stopped limiting.
okay, I knew it.
And his comments are different now when he does come out. I see what you're talking about. So that's what we're for. That's what we're for. It's not a love-hate thing. Because I love something, I have to hate Mr. Trump. I can't hate him. It's me. And I'm him. That's what I'm saying.
That's the way I think about it mostly. I keep saying, silly as it is, he didn't drop in from Mars. He came out of us. So what are we going to do? What are we going to understand from it?
Exactly.
I don't say I love him.
Yeah. I keep telling myself that, maybe.
Don't necessarily love the pus coming out of that football.
Oh, we already talking about how nasty and stink it is, but it is what it is, you know.
But you know, while you were talking, I thought about conviction. And when Jesus said, if your conscience don't condemn you, or condemn, if your conscience doesn't condemn you, neither will I. You know what I mean? So because we are in this too, we get convicted of things that we know that are unright. And I think, well, I mean, my question to the class is, or to everybody is, okay, there's the conviction. Who plays who's the judge? And
You the judge.
I'm the judge?
Judge, jury, and sentencer?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at this as a court thing, so I'm the judge.
You're it.
You mind explaining that to me?
Yes, ma'am. When not when, as you are the created being, and as you are the prodigy of the Creator, one of the things I was going to talk about today, I just had a greater things shall you do, out of John 14:12. Well, you just popped the question right into the middle of that. You are called, once you have an awareness of who you are, and we don't all know everything about who we are yet, right? But we have to use what we have. We have to function on the knowledge that we do have. We are held responsible for the knowledge that we do have. And so when something comes in our thoughts, et cetera, and it convicts us, and based on the knowledge you have, what do you do with that? Nobody can take that away from you. God is not going to take. He says, I've given you all things. I'm going to call y'all. Sit this jacket.
Yeah.
Jackie. Hey, I'm teaching right now. Is this something that I can find out? Okay. Thank you. When we made a decision to not do some things that we did before, and we labeled them as wrong, or we labeled them as not who I want to be, did you not have to make that decision yourself? Did you not have to act on that decision yourself? Did somebody force you, tie your hands, lock you up in a jail, or were you in the jail of your own convictions that you had to free yourself? Some of us are still in the jail of our own convictions and have not freed ourselves.
Well, I am. Well, go ahead.
I am what? I want to understand, make sure I understand
Well,
what
you
you're
were
saying.
saying we're dealing with some stuff that we're going through some, I don't know what you said.
Some personal things that
I'm having to
that you-
deal with, and I know that I got to deal with.
Okay. But so you know the answer to your question. Who is the judge? You know the answer to your question already. Who's the jury? And the
That's
answer
the
is us.
sentencer.
All
That's
that
us.
rests with us.
That makes sense.
We are our own judge and jury
We keep ourselves in our own bond.
in our own bondage. We can free ourselves. The worst is we've been given everything that we need according to life and godliness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean life in this world. I mean real life as it relates to living barrier free from certain bondages. But we choose. We choose to stay there. We choose to stay there and wallow in that dark place sometimes. That's our choice. So we're our own judge and jury.
You know what? I have to smile about this. I saw my aunt last weekend. And one of the things she said, she had a friend that was judging homeless people. And she finally told a person, they're probably better off than us. They're not bound by all this baggage of having to own a car, a house, and a job. They can come and go as they please. And I thought that was pretty insightful. Never thought about it. And maybe not so much as we think of homeless, like we define it, but in the homeless category, there's two. There's the street person, the person who wants to be out on the street, and then there's the homeless that doesn't want to be there. So all I could think of is what you were saying
And
just
look at how
now, like,
Look at the box we put them in.
Yeah,
Homeless.
right, and they're probably,
No home.
yeah,
That's what that means. Well, what is a home? That's the deeper question.
It's a box that's a home.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why comedians make jokes out of all this stuff, and we laugh. Including, the pleasures of children, right? And always like, right? You have friends that are off to the Bahamas, but you have kids, right? They make those kind of jokes.
When
Why?
you have kids, what was that meaning?
Well, the burden of children versus just the open, relaxed joy. Let's go to the Bahamas next Tuesday.
Why
Right?
did you have both?
Some of us can't, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, but it's that kind of thing. So, and the presumption. Everybody wants a house. Everybody wants a home.
Yeah.
And you're not talking about what does a home mean? A collection of friendships and a sense of security or something.
And what happened in the last quote unquote home that that person had that made them
Yeah.
right.
want to
Remember the
do what
script.
they're doing now?
But you're right. There are a significant number of people that go back to the street
Yeah.
when opportunities let them leave.
But that's not a bad thing, no, because sometimes you want to disconnect from,
And isn't it fact
Things.
disconnected? Yeah.
And make,
you know?
yeah,
you
I see what
wanna
you're saying,
disconnect from
things.
things. So, I ain't saying I'm in my house. I love the comfort and the, privacy or whatever. But I'm just saying, you just want to disconnect from that stuff.
And some
How-
people don't, yeah, you're right, just, they choose, that's not for them.
Your
But look
relatives.
at all the constraints we got, guys, when we got these things. What comes with the things? The strings.
Baggage.
The strings come with the things.
Downsize and move to Mexico.
The things come with
See
the
what comes out.
And so,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
in the
spring and
neighborhood, I
summer
got to keep up
cleaning.
with the Joneses. And if I'm in a certain neighborhood, they say, well, I got people coming to my door saying you got to go to my church. And the things that come, the strings that come with that. And they're, I to some extent agree with what your aunt said, it may be that for them life is more peaceful.
Yeah.
What, being out there holding a sign up? Or just,
No,
Not
not be,
everybody holds up a sign.
not be bound by home
And
or
even those who hold up a
things.
sign doesn't mean that they're homeless.
But let's also understand how we, to a certain extent of our culture, we punish that.
We do.
We make it dangerous for them. I worked in a drug and alcohol abuse program. Heroin, there's nothing scary about heroin. But we push people into a lifestyle that creates all kinds of unnecessary, and that's just an example. Whether it's stealing or whatever it is, it's for habit, because they're not doctors and can't open a medicine cabinet, which a lot of physicians do. Opiate thing, the whole thing, right? There are people who get away with it, and there are people that who can't, and we like to punish the ones who can.
It's the same thing
We're not trying to
concept
fix them.
that we talk about now with the opioid addiction versus the drug addict.
Right.
We just change the words, and so when you got a doctor who can go into his cabinet and do what he wants because he has access at a different level versus
but they don't get away with it.
Who?
The doctors.
Sure they do.
Because, no, it seems like they do, but they will not. Because and it's-
ultimately.
ultimately they won't, because whatever you do is gonna stick with you. It's
Well,
gonna be there with you.
But there are a lot of people who can fly below the radar. There are a lot of people who can manage a habit.
Well, if that's the
No,
case,
her
why
point is
these-
that in their next life they may be dealing
or
with
even in
something.
this life. Well, look, if you don't believe it, look what's happening to Flynn and Moore and all these other guys, Spacek and all these. No, you're not getting away with it. You think you are.
Yeah, but I remember somebody saying, "Who's the guy who did the big Ponzi scheme and went to jail?"
I know what you're talking
Yeah.
I know you're talking.
Yeah.
Murdoch?
Murdoch.
Yeah.
They said he's a grain of sand on the beach.
about. Bernie, yes.
Bernie, yeah.
He's a grain of sand on the beach.
Yeah. There are lots of
So there are lots of people that nobody's paying attention to. And they realize, step back, stop stealing that much, or whatever, right? So you get off the race. So you're just talking about the excess, or the people we can identify and call them the exception, when the truth is, are they really, one thing about corruption, this country is full of corruption, but you go, who? But I've lived in countries where its effect on people is much more serious. But we tolerate it because it doesn't touch that much of us so much. Poorer people in this country, for any number of reasons, but you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Until you really feel it, you don't necessarily have to see it. Until you get the fancy, the one that hits the news, and then, oh, it's all, go after him. But he's symptomatic. He's not some aberration.
Who are you talking about?
Flynn, name anybody you want to name.
Oh,
Anybody you want to name.
One of the many names come up.
Nobody invents this stuff.
Oh.
They do it. They get into it because it's there to be done, and they decide to do it. This even loops back to the abuse of women thing. They give into it and do it because it's there. Doesn't mean everybody does it. But,
I want to touch on the sign thing because I saw you. There's something behind why you said that.
the sign thing?
Even the ones with the sign, that's the lady said it.
Oh, them being homeless or whatever. Well, because to some I give and some I don't. And I just use them because I don't know why I put them and homelessness together, because I believe that some of them have somewhere to stay. But then you just have some who don't. So I don't know why I put those two together as far as them being homeless. And then you do have some that have on the sign, I'm homeless. So.
The reason I'm bringing that up is that, just a funny story. My brother Rolando took his car to Midas Muffler on Elmwood. And he said he had to get back over to Two Notch Road. Now, his wife just had a fit when she learned that he stood on the side of the street with a sign, wrote, that says, need a ride to Two Notch Road. I mean, I don't know if she had these imitations in her mind about who holds signs or what, but that's what he did. And he got a ride to Two Notch Road. And I mean, he was well dressed. Road usually is well dressed. I mean, but the issue still is the idea for his wife, the idea that he would stand there and hold that sign as if he was needy. Well, he was. He needed a ride to Two Notch Road. He said, Rolando, why didn't you call somebody? Because somebody's going to Two Notch Road. I mean, that's wrong. Somebody's going to Two Notch Road. Somebody's going in that direction. I can get a ride.
But
and the thing is the person who stops it, are you an Adams? He said, oh yeah, I live down blah, blah. You need a ride? Yeah, okay, come on in. I'll give you a ride. That's something.
Your old cousins, that's why. This
Anyway,
whole town is screaming, except me.
My sign's gonna say, I'm an Adams, I need a ride next
There
time.
you go. I'm an Eastover. I'm an Eastover Adams. That's what you say.
There we go.
Oh.
Then
Then at least they'll talk to you, and they'll talk to you when you're driving. No, but I'll be honest, I find myself, I pull up at a stop sign or whatever it is, there's a guy with a sign. And there's some days, I don't think anything of it. There's some days, if I have something, I give it to him, and I don't think that much about it, I just do it. So it's what I feel at the moment,
Yes,
without qualifying. And there are the days I'm like, there's a little feeling behind my not giving that's resentful.
Okay.
I know it's there.
What are you
I feel it.
resenting?
I don't know, but it's a little sense. It's because I've been maybe too absorbing of this notion that you earn, you go out and you work, you produce. So if you're not, then it's that whole thing. Why we have subclasses in this country that's very class conscious, but just hates to use that term, right? And we punish people who need to be helped. course, there are idiots in the middle of that group that make it, that people can point to, and they make it harder. They're people you try to help and whatever. But still, I'll be honest, that sometimes at that corner, what goes through my mind is, not just, and yet I had a friend and somebody that I knew in a country I worked in, where there are people all the time like this, and her thing was, I'd fill the ashtray full of coins, and anybody comes to my car, I give them something until there's no more coins. That's it. I don't make any judgments, nothing. And then I knew someone else who said, only women. Right? Until you live in Spain, you realize all the anyway. Gypsies supposedly that are being nannies, that are taking the children, putting them in the street during the day, and then bringing them back home to the wealthy parents. And just all this. So there's all kinds of corruption. And if your head's full of that, you can hesitate and go, how do I know this isn't a woman who just picked this kid up and she's exploiting, How do I know this guy doesn't have a Mercedes around the corner? I always tell myself, ain't no way a guy can look like that, be standing there, and have his BMW around the corner.
Here's the point you just said. You just prefaced that with saying, there are some days that there's no judgment. You just give if you have to give.
You're open.
So that's the issue. When you start letting those other thoughts come in there, that's when, it begins to tie you up in the knot.
That's right. And I'm driving down the road going, why am I, why do I make a deal? I don't turn around and go back and give them the money. I just like, Richard, what
was that all about?
I think it takes a brave person to stand out there, and to do what they're doing. You either brave or a con artist, but they're doing
how
what they have
different
to
is
do.
that than the guy who puts on a suit and goes to work every day and is doing something wrong or stealing from somebody in the name of the company or
how is it different from a charitable organization?
Oh gosh.
That asks you to give. There's no face on it.
Yeah.
They just send you these little name tags, address labels, whatever. How is that different from someone that has a face on them and they said, please help?
Well, traditionally the name tag, the stuff in the mail is easier. Americans are pretty good at trying to give money to somebody else to take care of the problem, as opposed to getting more involved in it. But, okay.
But the essence of what I'm saying.
That's a projection of what I just said about myself anyway. Let somebody else give this guy money. I'm not going to make that decision.
But the essence of what I'm saying is, how is that person standing there with a face on them saying, please give, please help, different from charitable organizations that send you stuff in the mail? The difference is that individual is facing you and mirrors you immediately. In the mail, it makes you feel good that you put a check in the mail and send it off to the Indian group or the whatever, the Lung group or whatever, so you can have this little feel-good notion that I gave. So, and I'm saying, that's something that I have to deal with too. That's why I'm staying on this issue. And when Richard brought it up about, sometimes I give, that's why I'm staying on this issue, because I'm there too. And so but we're called not to just be there. We're called to, if it's in our face, we have to see beyond it. And so the difference is you're called to act on something immediately with another human being right there. Whereas it's easier to put a check in the mail because and it's not the same. Those people who send you the nice, nifty package stuff make millions of dollars off of us who feel good about writing our check and putting it in the mail. Versus the person who's standing there, and what if they do have a car somewhere? What if they do have a home somewhere? If what they're doing is, okay, I got enough to put food on the table today for my little one. I mean, so the thing is, we gotta stop judging that.
Did y'all see the news this week? I don't know why I had to say this. It made me so happy. It was right after that sad moment. This lady went into a grocery store and stole $43 worth of food, right? Policemen chased her down. They asked her why. She said, because I have a kid sitting in my house right now that has not eaten. Maybe 4 or 5. They went. They verified it. Now, she should have gone to jail for theft and abandonment. The cops said, no, we're not going to file charges. He went to the grocery store. He spent $150 to stack her house for 2 weeks and told her, if you have this issue again, come see me. And they were talking about, why did you do such a thing? He said, what purpose would it have served for me to put that child in protective services and her in jail? That was the best news of the week I could think of, because it's right what you're saying. It's in your face. I have the same issue with disasters. I had to ask myself, why is it you gave to that disaster? But every time you come down that bridge, depending on who the person is, because there's a guy I see, I'm pretty regular now because I go that way, pretty regular. Mm-hmm. I think, well, not today. That's what I think about mine, not today. And you guys are making me think, well, why is today any different than any other day? What makes you think his need is okay, let's say on Monday and Thursday, and not on Tuesday and Friday? But why would I give to wait for a disaster as opposed to everyday people across?
I have my daily disaster.
Yeah.
My life is
That's what.
I have my daily disaster.
But I had to tell the
But you just gave me another nugget. Thank you very much. How stuff that's out there is touching people, and their lives are changing because the very thing they would have done before, they didn't do. And this time, that policeman would have handled it differently. Just like the military guy who got his group to take the selfies. Well, how he would have handled that before is not how he handled it that day. And so you can't tell me that, the stuff that's happening, that it doesn't change lives. And when your life has changed, your world has changed, you touch somebody else's world. It would have been also good if he told her where she could go to get some food if she needed some food, or some other avenues she could.
But you know the interesting thing about that whole concept of going to get food? Now we've painted such a stigma to that. It's not really, for as many food pantries as we have, or as many food banks as we have, the people who run them, when I was in the business and they were serving them, they would say, well, I don't want them coming here more than one time a month. You're only giving enough rice or beans for a week, but you're going to judge somebody for going to different pantries, or you only want them to come to your pantry once a month. But we don't eat once a month. We don't shop once a month, those of us that can afford to. So I think, she just felt like she was with them, because I can't help but think, did she have a right to get food stamps? There's so many questions, like, didn't other people want to help her too? And
the thing
you
is,
just never know.
If the policeman said, if you have issues, call me, that indicates a connection right there.
Yeah.
And so that life is going to change because of that connection.
And that little voice too.
Because he says, in essence, I am my brother and my sister's keeper.
Yeah.
So.
But that's the thing, and what I'm admitting is what's still in me, that's me versus you, that's me versus them.
Yeah.
And that's what's insidious and so deeply ingrained in our notion of individualism in our culture. Okay, it's all great when it's working in our favor. But if you're the guy looking for the ride because your car's why do you take the lights? Anyway, that's another question. Anyway, okay, you know what I'm saying? And now, what did we learn? What did I learn from Haiti? What did we learn from Houston?
Puerto Rico.
Was it the Red Cross or who now? The whole question of where did the money go? So the notion that the institution is a valid, convenient,
Yeah.
but also valid because it's an institution. And I've seen plenty of instances since I've been in the career I was in, where you can take an NGO,
What's that, Richard?
non-governmental organization. It's a UN title which people have popularized to really mean non-profit.
Okay.
Okay? But I've seen where you can make big money in non-profit organizations. They don't call it profit.
Yeah.
It's called surplus. Money's money. The question is, how do you use it? Do you give it to your board? Do you give it in bonuses? There's lots of ways. So all these notions that this explained this, you know, the guy must be in the street because something bad happened to him. The guy must be in the street because he's lazy. This institution is a good institution because they take care of, pick your whatever. And now all of these things are in question. So it's much more problematic, I think, if you're reflective on what to do other than just following, you know, your heart and don't judge.
You know, it's interesting you say that because there's a story in the news now about Malibu, and I'm assuming Malibu, California. I don't know where else. But the city came to this church that has been serving food to the homeless buku years, double-digit years. And they have requested that they stop doing it because they don't want the homeless in their neighborhood. They serve roughly 75 people a week, the lady said. And one of the guys came on, he goes, well, his white young male, not young, maybe it's 30s. He said, what am I supposed to do? I just got a job and I'm trying to save money. And this is a place I can stay. And this is a place where I can eat for right now. If you take that away, what will happen to those of us who are trying to make it in this world? And the church is now in a quandary of whether they're going to do it or not do it. And
So
I'm
they
just
don't
like,
want to deal with the
the
part
city doesn't want, they want their home, they're saying their homeless numbers are up because this church is feeding them. So they've
Good.
asked the church to discontinue their
The issue
service.
is what you just said, the church is in a quandary about whether they should do it or not.
Yeah. That
Well,
but then
haven't
the
we
whole
had-
city, like really.
But have
No,
we had
the church is in a quandary about whether it should
Yeah.
continue to do it or not. Regardless of what the city is saying.
I hear you. That segued to the book I got.
What is the name of the book, Richard?
It's called The Arrogance of Faith.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
That sounds interesting.
And basically, it's Christianity and race in America. It's a history of how the church, Protestant church, was complicit in slavery and couldn't bring itself to, quote unquote, do the Christian thing. Okay? It rationalized. For example, slavery was an evil but not a sin. And they were worried about sin because of the next life. So they found ways to evade, avoid, etc. So you have the same sort of thing going on.
Evil is not a sin then? Is that what I'm supposed to take from that?
Yeah, because these were lesser human beings. They were
They're animals,
uncultured.
they weren't humans.
They were uncultured, so slavery was protecting them from the life they otherwise would have. You were supposed to be the benign slaveholder.
Okay, Miss Barbara, I heard what you said,
Mhm.
but I'm still having that evil but not a sin. So the devil is an animal because he's evil, but he's not a sin? Yeah. Okay.
You look at the Catholic Church with the Nazis. They were more complicit with the Nazis because they were afraid of the communists, the godless ones. And the rationalizations just go from there. You just have you just look at the Christian.
Well, and they thought the Jews were evil.
You know what? Setting
So
your
now you're
intent
in the-
makes all the sense now when you talk about these things. It really does.
And you look at the Native Americans and they go, please try to explain the Trinity to me.
Mm.
Why do you have to have such a convoluted rationalization? Because you're making Jesus into the Son of God. You know? So I'm saying, well, this is the whole book's about right up till now, really, the Protestant church. I don't know what you feel about the black Methodist, blah, 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 but just how
And the Protestant church came out of the Catholic church.
in the Catholic Church, and of course there were exceptions and individuals and things, but as an institution, even till now, it can't, right? But even here in Columbia, haven't there been discussions about busing people to other parts of town who are homeless? Can't we get these people dealt with in another place?
But, and not only
Gated
that, they built
community
the homeless
management.
shelter in another place, so they tell the folk, well, the temperature's
Right.
going down to 48 tonight, so if y'all wanna take the bus over to the shelter, meet on the corner of so and so and so.
At such a time,
And such.
if you missed the bus. Right? Well, you had the same argument for what you're associated with, right down my street, right?
Oh yeah, disability. Well, people with different abilities. That's what they really are.
I mean, my dad went, we all need nuclear energy, we just don't want the plant on the end of our line.
So religion is really our wilderness.
The dry desert.
But I think you have
Yes.
to, and I get it. I'm sorry. To me, what's in all this is I grew up being told what made us great was the soundness of our institutions and our systems.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the person. It's only and ever has been the person. Because everything, I've seen everything flipped, corrupted in some way or another, or go through that phase. So, you know,
And I think that's the key.
it's the heart of the person.
It's based on the person, the individual.
Yeah.
Any institution is made up of the people who.
But look, yeah, but I believe, I bought the thing,
Work there
like the
in
military,
ministry.
the perfect example. You know, it's not you, it's the mission. So people get killed, they're replaced. I mean, that's the most dramatic example you think of it. No, at the end of the day, it has to be the will of those people. And that's how the training has changed. They're more lethal. There's other ramifications. But so just because it's an institution, what was it, the Red Cross? Who was it? Was it the Red Cross in Haiti? I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I get confused with all these big organizations that we take for granted. How many millions of dollars disappeared? They built 2 houses.
6 houses.
Okay, 6. My historian always keeps me grounded in real facts. But the principles, the same.
And 150,000 needed nurses. The thing that I was
They
gonna
collected it like $150 million.
Huge. And they don't know where it is. And $1 billion went missing in Iraq. I mean, come on.
I think that's why it's so hard for me to give to Red Cross, because I know that they're budgeting for the next disaster, and in my mind, well, what does that do for the people now? Like, I think sometimes that's the scary thing for me with organizations, because I always think that money has to, some portion of it, more
Keep
than where
them
it's going to
going.
where the people, yeah, keep them going.
Until
That's
Some
it.
people are still living with the Matthew debacle,
Yeah,
Hurricane Matthew
Sandy.
debacle, and Sandy, and whatever.
Yeah.
And so, and they've already forgotten about Puerto Rico, who was back in the dark when it was never in the
Well,
light for
Well,
me.
what else not
and now they're shuffling
Virgin
them
Islands,
between
they
2
just-
cities now, right?
Completely overlooked.
Yeah, Sandy, the
Oh,
front
yeah.
line did a thing about 200 million stuff.
Yeah.
Went off to the adjusters or whatever. Not a nickel, that money.
Went to the people's
To
houses.
rebuild
Yeah.
the money. So, but the thing about Houston and Red Cross is you had the Daily Show and other places coming out instantly to say you can give locally, here are the organizations. And the sense is they're there, they're on the ground, they're responding to this disaster. It's not a large, indifferent kind of, we're planning for decades of this kind of thing. You're right, and that's a classic argument in my profession.
So then, I was gonna, we we're gonna let questions drive today, and so that's what we've done, but if we didn't have questions, then I was gonna begin to delve into the greater things shall you do. Well, the greater things that we shall do is dealing with things from an individual level, from our perspective. The greater things that we do is we can touch the world by individually touching another person. That's the greater thing. Because everything else we've been talking about, disasters and whatever, my disaster may be the thing that I need help with today. My disaster. And then my disaster, because you helped me in my disaster, and I pay it forward and I can touch somebody else in their disaster. So if that's what I see as the greater things. I don't see the greater things as numbers per se, as we see numbers. The greater things are, what am I doing individually, myself, to effect and to touch and to influence someone else and to love someone else. That's
So-
the greater thing.
But that's
Is the
really-
greater thing the peeling back to know who you are? That's what we're saying?
The greater thing is knowing who you are and then moving forward and touching from that perspective.
But the real point, I think, too, is you don't have a beach without how many grains of sand. So that grain of sand. So everything starts with you. That's all a collective is. We've just allowed ourselves to think that organization is something unto itself, and we'll let it do it for us until you see the cracks and things that just don't work.
And what you see is the
Yes.
$150 million that's can't be found, et cetera, et cetera. But if I touch one life, and if another individual just touched one life, another individual just touched one life, and that one life has family members attached that you can impact, that's the difference.
Or if that organization had stayed quote unquote true to itself, like the church, how many houses would have been built?
Yeah.
Right?
3,
You could argue 12.
12. That's 6 more than the last.
You could argue that the houses were more expensive than they need to be, but that's another level of problem.
Right.
They have the whole money gone.
Yeah,
Well, and look at-
$150 million in Haiti could rebuild cities.
Yeah.
Because
This is the curse that Haiti's always been. It's just a black hole, no pun intended, for money. Because everybody brings their own agenda. Nobody's interested in Haiti. And there are places like that.
So Barb, you think in impoverished areas, well, to us it seems like impoverished areas, but you never know, but it's because when I went to Jamaica, I saw some stuff, and I'm like, the people who I went with, they're military people, and they never had to live in a house with the windows up in the summertime to get cool. They didn't have outdoor plumbing. You know, the military took care of the people. But when I went, that was the norm for me because I grew up like that. You know? So my thing is with this stuff that we see in we call it impoverished areas. Yeah. The Creator is not asleep, and it knows what's happening. What will bring... Somebody's got to learn something from this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
But that's in every country, and as it is here. The impoverished areas, the ghetto areas. But I think part of it is culturally, like for instance, when we went to Nicaragua, people were living in what we would call ghettos, or less than that, seemingly, but it wasn't the same because the people's mindset, some of them wasn't that. When you have someone who would welcome you into their home, I mean, they aren't judging you, so why are you judging them as the issue?
right.
Like, I might not welcome y'all in my home because I say dust is everywhere, but that's not me. I tell y'all come on in anyway because dust is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, the mindset I had is, okay, I'm not welcome because. Not so there, it's different. People are willing to help you. They don't have that mindset, and I can't say just they because the people that I came in contact with, I have to say.
Okay.
Very, very helpful, and I mean, you're the one who's lost in their city. They aren't lost in their city.
Right.
They're willing to help you. So it's a different kind of for for some of them, it wasn't this continual thing of somebody owes me something. It wasn't that.
You don't get that at all.
But somebody did owe them something because they've been in their governments. They've taken money but it's they weren't brought up with the baggage of what we've been brought up with.
Right.
Blah blah blah. It's a little bit different. They found contentment in the midst of. That's what I'm saying. In the midst of.
We're gonna live.
Maybe it isn't that they found contentment. Maybe it's we found discontentment.
That's
A house with no windows, you ain't got to worry about the AC bill. Your houses are usually built to capture the breezes. They're simple.
Shacks, so.
You just get high and sweat.
Yeah, and that's good for your body.
And you stop worrying about whether everybody smells good or not. You just get on with it.
Yeah, maybe that's us in our.
Just get on and live in.
You
Yeah.
get on a bus and pass there.
They are
Talk about
living.
living in the now, guys. You have to live in the now. Because sometimes you have to go on the street and say, okay, you have to live in the now. Anyway.
But I'm sitting here thinking, if I have to say it this way, think of what your people have been through in this country.
Who you are? Our you are?
Black.
People.
Well,
Why don't you just think of what black people say?
think of what black people have been
Thank you.
through. It's fine. I don't think that. Okay. Anyway.
Because when you say it at your people,
Well, but I'm saying it for that reason, because the next thing I was going to add is white people are the ones who panic when our lawn watering system breaks down, right? But in the spite of all of this, okay, black people, minorities, people have to work their way into and up in any society, whether they're institutionally not allowed to or not, have still created so much. And you can almost make the argument that my people, white people, are the ones who gotten themselves to believe the lie that they got to have it all this way or else.
Yeah.
And that's why they're getting more vicious. When you thought somebody would wake up and go, wait, there's fewer of me than them. But that's not how colonialism works. There's always fewer of them than the native population. So they got bigger weapons. So they found other ways, subterfuge. They couldn't beat you on the battlefield, they co-opted you politically, something, right? So there's this notion that if we're not dominant, then. But there's been plenty produced as well in the arts and other things like that. I don't know how.
in spite
But
of
yeah, so-
everything, in spite of the baggage, in spite of what we've been told, the lies, whatever, in spite of the lies that we still accept in ourselves, so that we're still in bondage in some areas, there is that creative part of us, that connection to the Creator that allows us, in spite of the worst of times, for something to be created, to shine, to be an example for people. And it doesn't have to be a thing, it could be a concept, or it could be a thought, whatever it is. It could be an action of helping somebody. In spite of everything else, those things continue to go. We don't hear about those things. But the stories that you just shared this morning, Romel, are just an indication of me that on a larger scale, to a larger extent, those things are continuing to happen. So, in spite of all of the stuff that we seem to think is happening in the U.S., is just, you demonizers and whatever, there is good that's occurring. People are touching other people's lives. And so that's the thing that we have to keep in mind. Because who else is keeping it? everybody else is being distracted by all the other stuff that's going on, or negativity. So we have to keep those things in the focus in the macro. And so thank you for your input on those issues, those stories, because it's happening. There are people who are coming face to face with themselves and saying, this is not what I am, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to go with the herd. I don't want to go with the flow that's going over this waterfall that many of us want to swim. I want to get out. So.
It's messy.
It's painful.
It's painful and incomplete. You know, it's just projection of this born again kind of evangelical notion of why doesn't everybody? I did. Life doesn't work that way. And then when you go, if you actually go and pay attention and you work in Africa, outside with other cultures and religions, you either get out of there pretty quick, or they throw you out, or you learn to calm down and just live, be a human, learn from them, and realize it just isn't going to happen.
Keep it in perspective.
Like an invasion in 5 minutes.
Telephone folk, anything, any comments, any questions? We've just been really addressing general questions or just issues that came up today. Cyber.
No, can't think of anything.
Okay.
That y'all haven't touched on, I should say.
Okay.
Well, the thing I think about though is, and sometimes I'm really in awe of this, is that even though we Black people as a race in this country, even though we've been through so much, we've survived slavery, we've survived Jim Crow, we survived civil rights movement, we've survived everything. And I keep wondering, why did the Creator make us so resilient? I mean, we didn't benefit from the New Deal. We didn't benefit from hardly any of the government programs in this country. But yet we kept being resilient.
It's got to be a consciousness. It's got to be a mirror. And sometimes that mirror, people don't want to see the mirror, and they continue trying even harder to say, okay, you guys need to go back to your own country. But that's what it is, the consciousness. You keep it in people's face. If we were not here, it wouldn't be in people's faces. If we all left this country, it would say, wow, now the problem is gone.
Yeah, I'd say it another way. I'd say maybe you're going to have to be as resilient as you got to be until we start to learn. And I mean,
well, yeah,
us
we don't have to
people.
be.
And let me be clear, I do not think that way. I'm trying to sort of make that part of the point of the separation. But yeah, that's the way I see it. God bless you for, think of the Native Americans who
I think
there's 10 of them left, and we're not even willing to have them teach us anything anymore.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Is this the story of the prodigal? Is this analogous to the prodigal son? Like, what was the son who stayed supposed to learn? That you have to go out into life to learn experience, and you still love them when they return home? Because to me, that's what it
really
seems like.
It was a story about not only the guy who left, but the guy who stayed.
Right.
Because the guy who stayed stayed in the privilege, stayed with privilege.
Is that not what?
Became bitter.
What became, yes.
Is that not what, for lack of better description, whites and blacks have done? We've got this. We've created this the son who stayed, the son who went. And both of them had to be in each other's face to be a reflection to each other, did they not?
Well, see, I don't even see it that way. I see it further back with the indigenous people who were here to start with.
Okay.
I mean, to be living here to be living off the land, to have a relationship with a spiritual being, and to have all of that just crushed when another race came in and just gave you disease and took that away and enslaved you.
We could say that about all the way around what we know as this world.
And
That's
then,
true.
And even today, to live on reservations in this box, we put in a box and saying, okay, you have to survive in this box. Where the rate of alcoholism and suicide is just awful. I don't think we're where we need to be. I don't even look at black anymore. I see it as people, and we're not where we need. I don't care if blacks get whatever they think they deserve. It's
Okay.
not just blacks. We've done a disservice to people. And I say we as a people have done a disservice.
Service to people.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty, white people have done a lot of this. And that's what drew me to this book. Where does the justification for a lot of that come? And it's because it doesn't have to be peculiar to the white race, because we're willing to have somebody else do the hard work. Pastor Richard said in here 20 years ago, people are willing to have somebody else tell them what the scripture means rather than read it and learn it for themselves. Right? So we had a church that told us how it was going to be. And I don't know how much of that has probably permeated the black church too.
It has.
You know?
It has.
Certainly in more recent days. Everybody's now in what do you call this new thing where being successful and wealthy. It's all, we just, so how, I don't know how it ends.
Well, what happens is that this is an opportunity for corrections to occur, and corrections are beginning to occur. And the thing to remember is that just because this has occurred on a large scale that you see with your eyes, know in here, that it's occurring at a scale spiritually that it needs to occur, and that's where the real healing comes. That's where the real change occurs. So it's happening, guys. It's happening.
But
So don't be discouraged by what you see.
Well, but look in the mirror, because it's you. It's the only thing it is. That's why I like the thing I read or heard once, that for the political reasons, the phrasing in the, I guess you call it spiritual, was changed to "we shall overcome." The original word is "I." But to make it something that could be part of a movement of people, it became "we." But it was always "I." Because at the end of the day, right?
It's like Elohim being one in many. You gotta know who you are before you understand that you are part of the many, and how you are part of it. Oh yeah, that's it. First name. Thank you guys. Thank you very much for your input, because that drives us. Now I'm going to go out. Take a nap.
Are you trying to say I froze you?
No, I'm just cold.
This is the one reunion